You know the feeling. You're in the doctor's office, irritated because the Wi-Fi is dragging, or you're in the dentist's chair wishing they used just a fraction more numbing gel. We complain about these minor discomforts today, completely forgetting the brutal reality our ancestors had to endure just to treat a simple headache. Before modern medicine, a trip to the clinic was often a literal torture session. If you complained of a severe migraine in the ancient world, the leading medical advice was to drill actual holes right into your skull while you were completely awake to give the demons a way out. This was a time when logic was entirely optional. The treatments prescribed by the so-called medical experts were consistently deadlier than the diseases they were trying to fix, making a successful doctor's visit a bigger miracle than surviving a war. Put yourself in the shoes of a medieval peasant. Your stomach feels like something is actively trying to tear its way out. Naturally, you need a medical professional, except actual physicians are exclusively on the payroll of kings and bishops. You, the lowly peasant, are stuck with the village multitasker, the barber surgeon. You place your life in the hands of a man with zero formal medical training. Stepping through his door marks the start of a highly lethal gauntlet. Your barber surgeon doesn't wash his hands, and he's definitely not wearing gloves. He's the exact same guy who cuts hair, sharpens knives, pulls teeth, and lops off limbs. He also probably brews his own beer in the exact same wooden bucket he uses to catch amputated toes. This diagram illustrates the foundation of his medical knowledge. Medieval science dictated that your body was a literal vessel filled with 4 magical fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When you got sick, the logic was straightforward. One of those fluids was acting up and throwing off the balance. To fix your stomachache, you simply needed to be forcefully drained until the fluid levels evened out again. His preferred method is to grab a filthy rag, tie it tightly around your arm as a tourniquet, and take a rusty blade that looks suspiciously like a butter knife to slice open your vein. He's letting the bad blood out. But you walked into this shop already dehydrated from being sick. Now you're leaving with a fraction of your blood volume and a 50% chance of passing out face first in the mud outside. The accepted medical standard required actively draining and weakening the patient to achieve an imaginary internal harmony. Surprisingly, bleeding out onto a dirt floor doesn't cure the raging infection in your gut, so you have to return to the barber surgeon. He asks for a sample of your urine. He doesn't have a microscope or chemical tests. He just holds the flask up to the light, stares intensely at the color, and takes a deep whiff to guess what's wrong. When sniffing bodily fluids yields no answers, he reaches for his heavy artillery, a jar full of squirming leeches. He slaps a few of these little bloodsuckers directly onto your skin and waits for them to gorge themselves. What you don't know is these leeches have already been busy. The barber surgeon keeps them swimming in what is essentially someone else's dirty bathwater, reusing the exact same parasites on multiple sick patients throughout the week. The sicker you stayed, the more the medical playbook relied on introducing new infections and active parasites into your failing system. This trial and error approach faced a catastrophic test in 1347, when Europe received an unexpected arrival from Central Asia, the Black Death. Within a few years, this biological wildfire wiped out up to 60% of the European population. The bacterium Yersinia pestis caused spiking fevers, severe vomiting of blood, and massive, swollen lymph nodes. Slicing open veins and applying dirty leeches did absolutely nothing to slow down a highly contagious plague. The top medical professionals responded by dressing up in heavy leather coats and creepy bird masks. They stuffed the beaks with sweet-smelling flowers, operating on the theory that the plague was caused by foul odors, or miasmas, floating in the air. When the flowers and leather coats failed, the medical establishment hit a wall. In the medieval mind, if a doctor's physical interventions couldn't save a patient, the only logical explanation left was that the patient was cursed. Diagnostics shifted from the body to the spirit, fueling witch hunts. If your neighbor possessed an unusually effective knowledge of local herbs, or simply looked a bit too confident while boiling soup, they could be branded a witch and blamed for the neighborhood's ailments. The final medical test was tossing the accused into a river. If they sank to the bottom, they were deemed innocent, but drowned in the process. If they managed to float, they were proven guilty and promptly executed. When physical medicine reached its limits, doctors simply redefined the illness as a spiritual crime, replacing the failed leech with a terminal trial by water. Thankfully, you can pull yourself out of the medieval nightmare now. The people who endured and practiced these horrors weren't inherently stupid. They were trying to solve incredibly complex biological puzzles in a world that lacked the basic tools of the scientific method. This vintage photograph shows how we finally escaped that gauntlet. Doctors moved from isolated backrooms to structured medical theaters, representing the transition toward repeatable, evidence-based surgery where patient outcomes could be tracked and studied by peers. We traded rusty knives for precise instruments, and as this box of surgical sutures shows, we replaced filthy rags with tools specifically engineered and heat-sterilized to keep deadly bacteria completely out of the human body. So the next time you get a paper cut, take a second to appreciate the simple, sterile bandage you wrap around it. You get to enjoy a medical system where the cure is actually designed to fight your disease rather than finish you off.